What's up, guys? You can say goodbye to busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the NCAA tournament, whether you're betting on a big upset or a one seed. It's time to go dancing on America's #1 sportsbook. And right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines. You can even pick who's going to win it all. Just visit FanDuel.com/UCSS and bet on college hoops until they cut the nets down.
All right, guys. So yesterday, 2 years ago yesterday, the Browns traded for Deshaun Watson. It was a wild couple of weeks as there had been reports that the Browns were interested, and then there was a report that Deshaun Watson had turned the Browns down, and it looked like it was dead.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it came back to life. Let's play the clip. This was courtesy of my show on 92.3 The Fan, the Bull and Fox at the time. This was March 18th, 2022. It was one of my last shows. It was April 1st of 2022 was my last show on The Fan. Dustin was off that day. And, by the way, it was great to hear Dustin back on the air yesterday. He came back after a long hiatus. So it was good to hear him back on the air yesterday. But he wasn't on that day. I was on solo. And at the time the news broke, I was talking about the Guardians with Mandy Bell of MLB.com. Here you go.
Mandy, I think we have huge breaking Browns news, so I think I got to wrap things up.
That's okay.
I apologize. Mandy, thank you so much. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. We have big breaking Browns news. Deshaun Watson's coming to the Browns. Deshaun Watson is coming to the Browns. I know some people are going to be angry, and I probably shouldn't be excited about a guy who's accused of what he's accused of, but holy macaroni. What's the guy's name? Keith, what's the guy's name in Denver that I apologized to yesterday stupidly? He said he's never coming to the Browns. Benjamin Albright, you're an idiot, just like I said Benjamin Albright was. He doesn't know anything. I told you I owe no apologies. I take back my apology. Deshaun Watson's been traded to the Browns. Holy moly, what happened? What happened to all the people that said he's not interested? What happened to all the people that said, no, Deshaun Watson wouldn't want to come to the Browns? Oh, my God, Deshaun Watson is a Cleveland Brown. My gosh. The first one to have it, Adam Schefter. Deshaun Watson has decided he wants to play for the Cleveland Browns in a stunning change of events per sources. Watson has informed the Texans that he is now willing to waive the no-trade clause in his contract to be dealt to Cleveland. Trade compensation still to be finalized with the Texans, but Watson has made his choice. He expects to go to Cleveland. Holy moly! Where are all the tweets I got earlier? That nobody wants to play for the Browns. Deshaun Watson does, and for the first time in 40 years, 60 years, 100 years, the Browns have a franchise quarterback and will be able to compete with the best of the best in the AFC.
Hey, from now on, if anybody says I hate on the Browns or I hate on Deshaun Watson, I'm just going to play that clip. There's proof. That was my natural reaction.
There was a lot of enthusiasm there.
Was I excited?
You were very excited.
I don't want to hear
like
nothing
Christmas
about me being a hater. I don't want to hear that crap.
Well, it's not the thing here.
I mean, I was a hater on Benjamin Albright because he is one of the 10 biggest tools on Twitter.
Wow.
Guy's a tool bag.
That's quite a bar. There's a lot of tools on Twitter.
There is.
I mean, listen, it was a great moment. I think, like I said, the only reason is because like you was all excited then, but now you're like kind of down on it.
Well, how could I not be? He's stuck for 2 years.
I understand, but I'm just telling you why people call you haters now.
But it's not fair.
You went from that to like.
But it's not. But keeping it real is not being a hater.
And you know, in today's society, people can't handle when you keep it real. That's true. So there you go.
Sad.
I mean, it was a really good day. I mean, I always wanted to know, was it the guaranteed money that made him say?
Of course.
What do you think?
No, because so what, did they go in there with an offer and say, we'll give you $200 million? And then he was like, I'm cool. Then they came back and said, we'll give you $230 fully guaranteed. And he said, oh, really? Like, is that how it went?
I mean.
Because when they asked him about it, didn't he say something like, yeah, I met with Kevin Stefanski and we went over some plays and I liked his mind and all of those things?
All that's true.
Okay.
They did.
Yeah.
They were in Rusty's office. I've talked about it on the show before. They sat there for 45 minutes chopping it up over film. They had an iPad between them. They were going over plays and how they would use them in the offense. That's all true.
Okay.
And then Deshaun told him no, and then he changed his mind and told him yes when they added another 0 to the chat. I don't remember every detail now, but I wrote about this extensively when it happened. And there was something about when Carolina was out, the Browns knew they were back in, or the Browns thought there was a chance where they could get back in. Carolina would not guarantee the whole thing. And AB had stayed in touch with Deshaun's agent, David Mulugeta, throughout the day after he was told no, after he turned down the Browns. They stayed in contact on other free agents. I mean, free agency's going on. So there was other guys that they were talking about. And then the Browns saw an opportunity to get back in, and they took it.
Wasn't that the year that everybody was like, go after Jimmy Garoppolo? Wasn't he like a free agent?
No, I said that for last year. Or 2 years ago on the suspension.
Okay.
When the suspension was increased to 11 games.
Okay.
I'm
trying to think who was the backup player. Like, if it wasn't.
It was going to be Baker.
You think? So if they didn't get Deshaun, they would have
going to stick with Baker, 100%.
You think?
I mean, he's still under contract.
Yeah.
He was.
And he had no leverage. None.
There were no other options. I mean.
I just can't remember. I can't think back. It was an option that other people wanted, but I just can't remember who it was off the top of my head.
Russ, Kirk Cousins, those were names that were being thrown out.
That's who it was.
There were
Russell
names
Wilson.
that was kicked around.
Right.
That's who it was.
Were you excited when you heard the news?
About Deshaun?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I thought about, because when I looked at Kevin Stefanski's offense, I'm thinking about the bootlegs, and I'm like, man, if Baker made this work, and Baker's not even mobile like that, Deshaun would be even a bigger threat. And he's one of the best, at the time, he was one of the best deep ball throwers in the game. So I'm like, oh, man, he can really open up this offense and take it to another level. You know, you come out of that play action and you're on a bootleg, to have that option to either throw it or run and get the yards, like for a defender, that's putting you in a bind. Like, do I go here or do I stay back?
Right.
Stay back for smart defenders. You just always play deep to short. But it puts him in that bind. So I thought he would be perfect coming in here, and then suspensions happen, and now he don't want to be under the gun. I mean, he want to play out of shotgun. So it's just been a whole bunch of stuff that's kind of watered it all down.
If you would have told me at that time when I broke that news on the radio station that we'd be here 2 years later, I'd never have guessed this. If you would have told me what's the worst case scenario with Deshaun Watson, I would never have thought it would be as bad.
Well, you remember when the season started 2 years ago. We took a shot. Remember that, McNuggets? We took a shot. I had a shot of iced tea while everybody else had whatever they was drinking.
Yeah.
And we cheers to us finally having a franchise quarterback.
Yeah. But I was driving home from New Jersey. We were in New Jersey for my wife's side of the family. There was a funeral. Her grandmother died. We were driving home, and I'm driving down the turnpike on I-80.
Yeah.
And I saw it on my watch. My watch buzzed, and I saw the Browns were getting Deshaun. I literally drove off the road. Literally, I was off the road and bringing the car back on. And it was like instantly, it was one of those, for me, like, life just changed.
Oh, my God.
My life just changed.
100%.
In terms of all the stuff that comes with it. And really, if we're being totally honest, when they traded for Deshaun, it got worse. The off-field stuff got worse after the trade.
That's true.
It's not
that it got worse. It's just we learned more details.
More information came out, and the New York Times story
was it
came out
always 20 when we traded for him? Was it still that many, or did the number?
I think the number ticked up, but it was already a lot.
Yeah, it was a lot.
I just don't think that there was any details.
There was not a lot of details out, and it was the grand jury didn't indict him,
right?
So
and that's when the whole thing heated up for him.
And that's the NFL teams were waiting to see if he was going to get indicted.
Once he wasn't indicted,
once there was a no bill, that's when teams lined up for him. But then even after the trade is when the number grew to 50, 60, 70 women coming forward with random accusations against him.
Sorry to cut you off, Jason. I'm not even sure at the time of the trade if we knew for sure there was going to be a lawsuit.
Oh, there were suits
definite?
filed. Yeah.
Okay. Before that?
Yeah.
Civil.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Yes, okay. But, we didn't know the details, and they started to come out. But just on the field.
And when the Browns made the trade,
yeah.
I don't think they ever expected 11-game suspension in year one.
No
you
chance.
And I went round and round. It was probably the worst show we ever did And it started off.
Yeah.
It was just everyone on the panel screaming at each other for 25 minutes.
Well, yeah.
But the gist of that was, would the Browns make the same trade if they knew the suspension was 11 games? And I said, no, I don't think they would have given up as much had they known. But they were operating on the assumption, I don't know, no one ever put a number on it, but they never thought it was going to get that high. They never thought the suspension was going to
initially,
get that high.
the ladies gave them 3, right? Or 2. What'd she give them?
No.
6.
No,
It was 6.
The initial was 6?
The initial was 6.
The initial was 6.
I thought it was like 3 or 4.
No.
Initial was 6, and they changed it.
I thought it would be 6 on appeal. It would be knocked down to about 4.
Yeah.
And instead, it went to
Well,
11.
if the suspension had happened before, it would have been better because then the Browns would have gotten him for significantly less.
Yeah.
If they had traded for him. I think the argument was, would they still trade for him? Not. I mean, obviously they would have had to give it up less to get him.
Right,
But,
right.
Anyway, that's neither here nor there at this point. But, Mike, did you want to follow up a question on this?
Well, I got a question, but this was actually the first Cleveland sporting event that I specifically knew where I was because I just got hired.
Right.
And it was just me and Steve Becker. This show didn't have a name. I
Yep.
was still living in Texas. I never met Earl, Anthony, any of you guys. And I remember calling Steve Becker that night and being like, we got to start the show now. Like, I don't know who makes the YouTube channel. I don't know how we get this up. I know I was hired like 12 hours ago, but like we need to be on air now talking about this.
Yep.
And since then, that was really essentially the start of UCSS in a different route.
Yeah.
The question I wanted to ask, though, so Tyvis, Jason told us where he was. He almost ran off the road. Bull was on the air. We have visual and audio proof of where he was. Where were you when the trade went down? What was your initial reaction?
So, and this was B22, so my...
Well, he gave us his initial reaction already.
But where was he?
But where was he?
As
I don't know.
in the actual moment.
Oh, I was at home. I remember because I had friends. So when you play football and you talk to your friend, everybody comes to you because they think you got like inside information. So everybody's like, I'm telling everybody like, well, he said he ain't coming. So everybody's like, dang. All my friends like, dang, man, who do we pivot to? So we sitting there talking about that, and then that comes down, and I see it. And I sent it to the group chat like, oh my goodness, we got D Watt, y'all. And it just was a moment where everybody was just happy. Like don't get me wrong, everybody was cool with Baker, but it was just like D Watt's game was just better than Baker. Like if we wanted to go to the next level, we thought D Watt would be that answer. And a lot of people was fans of D Watt, but even in the Texas, like everybody was like, oh, he's better than Baker. So when we got him,
there was no doubt in terms of talent between the two at the time. It was,
you asked the Baker bros, that's a lie. But I just remember everybody being excited about it. But I was at home when I got that, I read it on Twitter.
Yes.
Big moment, man, oh man, I hope it pans out. I really do.
Well, that's the question I want to ask here before we move on to some Jameis Winston, some Stephon Diggs rumors, and the Browns working out another edge rusher. But, Bull, going off your audio, which I heard for the first time this morning, you said at the end the Browns have a franchise quarterback that can compete with anybody in the AFC now.
Right.
I'm assuming by taking those words you meant the expectation was deep playoff success, if not a Super Bowl, correct?
Absolutely. I thought the sky was the limit. And the sky can still be the limit. And, in fact, the roster – Not only, and that was without knowing what they were going to do with the roster, because the roster has been significantly improved in the 2 years since they made that trade. In fact, I would argue that, forget quarterback, the rest of the roster, this is probably the Browns' best roster since at least the 80s.
Oh, for sure.
If not longer.
For sure.
So there's no excuse, but I could never have imagined Deshaun Watson playing as poorly as he has. Never. It never would have crossed my mind. I thought they had a top 5 quarterback in the bag. You could tell by how excited I was. I thought it was 100% certainty. I never thought for a minute he wouldn't play well. And, obviously he hasn't to this point, and that's a bummer.
So 2 years in, what would you consider success in this trade then? How has it changed in 2 years since the aftermath of making the trade to now, and what you view personally as success?
At the time, I thought he was going to be a franchise quarterback, and now I don't. Now he's not. Now, could he get back to it? Maybe, but and that's why when sometimes people get upset because they'll say like, well, Baker got this level of patience, and well, Deshaun Watson came in here as being a Pro Bowl quarterback. We can't pretend now that we didn't have through the roof expectations. Everybody, when the Browns traded for Deshaun Watson, thought you had a top 5 quarterback. Didn't you think that?
I went into when they made that trade.
Yeah.
For so long, we had so many question marks about quarterback. You
Yeah.
can go through every position like, oh, we got somebody there, but
Yeah.
the quarterback has always
Right.
been the question mark.
Yeah.
When we got Deshaun Watson, I said that's not.
It's done.
That's not.
Exactly.
That's not
what
even.
everybody
That's not
thought.
even a problem.
That's
anymore.
what everybody thought. I'm not going to hold him to the Joe Flacco and Baker Mayfield, level. I'm holding him to the elite quarterback level, and he has played nowhere close to that. So now, 2 years later, I'm skeptical that he can get back to that. I hope he can. I still give him a shot. But if I had to bet $1 million, which I don't have, but if I had to bet $1 million, will Deshaun Watson be a Pro Bowl, legitimate, not like 14 guys have dropped out of the Pro Bowl.
Right.
Will Deshaun Watson be a top 5 quarterback ever again? Sadly, if I had to bet, I'd bet no. Now, could he be top 15 again? Sure. But right now, I don't have a lot of faith that he's going to get back to that elite status.
So when they made the trade,
Yeah.
my expectation was, at the time, Patty Mahomes was becoming the man. He was
Right.
at the time.
But
he
Deshaun
was,
Watson was the second best quarterback in the league.
Right. So I thought I judged it off. Can this quarterback go toe to toe with Patty Mahomes? And I think Tom Brady was still playing at the time.
Yep.
Can he go toe to toe with these guys? And my answer was absolutely he can. Now, I know he had the debacle when they played the Chiefs in the playoffs and they ended up blowing
blew a
the
big
lead.
lead.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all of that. But he showed that he still had the talent to do it. And you asked me today, can Deshaun Watson go toe to toe with Patty Mahomes? And that's where it gets a little hairy because I think he still has some talent to do that. However, what Patty Mahomes has done, the Joe Flacco thing kind of messed up a lot because Joe came in here with the same receiving cores and just went bananas with it. It made it just work like that. And to me, it's like, well, why didn't Deshaun do that? You tell the true success or the measurement of a quarterback is, can he make the people around him better? And why was Joe able to do that, but Deshaun kind of struggled a little bit? So that's where it's a question mark. He needs to figure out why that was the case. Because he had us thinking, like, these guys maybe they're not that good. And then Joe comes in here and now they look unbelievable. So he needs to get that type of measurement or get back to playing like that to be able to compete with a Patty Mahomes, because Patty Mahomes did it with just Travis Kelce and a bunch of Travis Kelce and the guys.
I mean, his second best player was a rookie wide receiver.
Right. So I want Deshaun to get to that level where he can. It doesn't matter who's out there. If it's Cedric Tillman and David Bell, he can still make it work. David
right.
Bell scored 3 touchdowns with Joe Flacco, so it can work. I think that's the level that I want him to get back to, and that's where it's like, can he get back to that level? Yeah. I feel like anybody can. If you've done it before and you've had glimpses and moments, it's just you have to figure out how can I consistently be at that moment. And it's just he's had injuries and the suspension and all of these other things. I just need to see him for 17 games. At this point, I need to see 17 games of what you look like, and then I'll be able to make a judgment. Because right now, whether you like it or not, it's built-in excuses.
Right.
You had time off. You were suspended for 11
Yeah.
games. The year after that, you got hurt. You had the shoulder thing. You had the ankle thing. So it's like built-in excuses to where I can't really give a grade on him because I need to see him for 17 games to truly assess if he's going to be that guy or not.
I am a big locker room guy. I'm big on what the guys in the locker room feel, what they think, where are they. I've talked about it numerous times on the show. If you're in that locker room right now and you play for the Cleveland Browns, where is your faith level in your quarterback?
And Deshaun?
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, they all speak highly of him.
They have to.
I mean,
and I'm not saying they don't believe it.
Yeah, like
they very well could believe it, but they have.
But they're not going to rip them publicly.
True. I mean, they just would decline. They just would decline to talk. I don't know. Like, I just think that Deshaun brings.
But you played in the league. You played on defense.
I think
in the NFL.
I think Deshaun brings an energy to the building. Like, I don't know necessarily how great he is, but I know when he's out there, a lot of players believe in his ability. And because they see it in practice, if he making these throws, like I told y'all last year, when I went to practice, he was phenomenal. He looked amazing in practice. So that's where the confidence in the locker room is coming from because they seen it. Now that he's coming off of injuries, it's like I got to see it again. Like, if I was playing for the Cleveland Browns right now and I was a wide receiver, I'd be like, dude, I got to see it. Like, we need to, you ain't even started throwing, which I think you set to throw this week. Once we start throwing again, I need to see if you still got zip on your ball. Can you still get the ball where I want it at? And then I'll be able to make those assessments. But to your point, it could be like murky right now because you don't know what you're getting.
I don't know how it's not.
I mean, naturally you have to be.
Yeah.
It's your throwing shoulder.
This is such a rare injury among quarterbacks. It's not like it's not a normal, typical injury with a lot of data on guys come back. It's this long as the rehab. They come back and they're fine, like pitchers with Tommy John. You know it's going to 12 to 15 months. More times than not, they're going to be fine. This is so rare. We just don't know.
Yeah.
You just don't know. I think that he'll come back with the same type of physical. I still have questions about the mental. Everything that he's been through.
Right. That was something in my excitement that I never thought about.
Yeah.
And it seems so obvious now that there would be mental hurdles
Well,
for him to overcome.
The interesting thing is when we had DeAnthony Bell on, he kind of touched on it a little bit where he was like, Deshaun is a guy who's one of the most locked-in guys I've ever seen, where he kind of blocks out a lot of the noise, and I could see that. But he was saying that the more years that passes by, where he's getting further away from it, it's going to be more easier for him to lock in. Like it's impossible for somebody to go through what he went through and not have it in your mind at some point. But as time goes by, it continuously get pushed further back in your mind, and now you're able to focus, which is true. That's very true. So it's interesting to see now that it's 2 years removed, how much further mentally can he be? Can he lock it? Because he's on the podcast talking about we got all the pieces to go to the Super Bowl. Like, you the biggest piece that they need.
Right.
So you got to hold yourself to a high regard this season.
Well, let me ask you guys this, because I feel like if he doesn't turn it around this year, that's it. Listen, when the Browns traded for Deshaun Watson, I was 100% certain he was going to be great. And then even going into last year, I think I said I was still 90% certain he was great. Well, now I'm like at 45%. If he doesn't do it this year, I'm going to be at like 1%. Because it's already been, remember, the last time he was great was 2020.
Yeah.
By the time we play, that'll be 4 seasons ago.
I think he's going to be good.
I think it's now or never, because if he falls on his face this year for whatever reason, the Browns have to now start thinking about the next quarterback.
I agree with that statement. I do. I think he will play to the ability. I'm not saying he's going to go out there and break like 5,000, 6,000 yards like G. Bush, but I think he will have a very productive season this year because, like I say, I think he was just catching his rhythm. You know, in those last couple of games, even though the Baltimore first half started off bad, I think he was still catching his rhythm. And obviously it's going to be hard to just come right out the gate and just be right where you were. It's going to take some time.
Especially if they do what G. Bush said yesterday, which is not play him at all in the preseason.
Yeah, that's absurd. G's absurd for saying that. But I think it's going to take some time. But I think by week 4 or 5, like
you're expecting him to play well.
I am.
I hope you're right. I certainly think this.
Because you know why though? Because it's it's 3 guys on the roster that I can think of off the top of the head that's kind of dependent on him this year. Coop, Judy, and Moore. All 3 of them is contract year. Like, you got to get it right. Like, I need you to get right this season so I can get paid. You got paid, and we've been behind you, supporting you this whole time. Everybody talk negative about you. I stopped them from doing that. Like, now I need you to look out for me. I'm trying to get paid this year. So I'm hoping that comes into play and he has that on his mind. Like, you know what, these guys ride for me. I'm going to make sure that I do everything I can to be in the best situation, to be the best version of myself so they can get paid.